Hi, welcome to Edward Box Guitar Tuition. So I've got another classic album inspection today. Today on this day, July the 11th, 1981, Def Leppard released their sophomore album, High and Dry. So this is a firm fan favourite with Leppard fans. It's building on the the hard rock elements of their previous album, On Through the Night, and carried on this into Pyromania, and then kind of left that sound really. So, like I say, diehard Def Leppard fans, this is one of their faves. So basically, a little history about it. They did the On Through the Night album. It did pretty well, number 15 on the UK charts, got them a foothold in America. But they weren't really happy with the production. The Tom Allen was probably a bit mixed, a bit wishy-washy. He didn't discipline him enough in the studio, they felt. A lot of overdone vocal harmonies on that album with sort of a few tuning issues, but quite a lot of good songs. Showing more heavy metal influence on that and progressive influence from a band like Rush. You can hear a bit more Priest, things like that. There's not as much of the hard rock AC/DC sound, and that's what they do on this album. Basically, they get the services of Mutt Lange in, probably through their management in association with Peter Mensch. And the reason why the album, I think they would have released an album probably in about February of 1981, but they had to wait till Mutt Lange finished For On the Fall, I believe. So that's why this album didn't come out until the summer. So I heard it at the time. A neighbour up the road had it. He bought it down, but we weren't really into Leppard, if I'm honest. But my wife's favourite band, so I listen to a lot of Leppard now. So I kind of got to know the stuff better. So the first thing you notice, opens with Let It Go, is like the guitars are a lot more focused. So Mutt Lange's got the two guitarists, they got them tuning right, he's got them tight. And it's got a pumping groove, this. It's got a strong vocal by Joe Elliott. His vocals will kind of vary through the album. He'll try different things, and sometimes it's not very successful. He'll screech too much. He's still finding his vibe. But on this track, his vocal is strong vocal, and that's probably why the track's last to this day. Has a trade-off solo, it's 4:43. And that's one thing about the album is, it's 42 minutes, so it's a little bit longer for an album of its time. Typically, bands would bring in albums under 40 minutes back then, but they're kind of stretching out with some instrumental sections. And that's something on this album. Little riffs kind of pop up sometimes for a few bars after solos and stuff like that. And that's quite unusual, and it kind of shows the guitarist's creativity. They've kind of probably got a lot of riffs, and it's like, well, where can we fit these in? And Mutt Lange's obviously like enabling them to craft those into the songs. I think later on down the line, they'll probably stick to more straighter arrangements, verse, bridge, chorus, and so on. So the second track, another hit and run, written by Rick Savage and Joe Elliott. So I'm just looking over at my screen there just to remind me. This one's 4:59, so a bit longer. It's got quite an epic sort of chord progression lead line at the start of this. Really strong chorus, and it's a really good second track. Then the third track, High and Dry, Saturday Night. This one's got an unusual riff at the start, and I'd imagine that's probably written by Steve Clark. It sounds like he's got a certain quirkiness to it, and he was renowned for writing riffs like that. Pretty catchy, kind of poppy in places. And yeah, this is interesting. He's got a good solo by Pete Willis on this, and you can hear the difference between him and Steve Clark. So Steve Clark's more melodic, but he has a thinner vibrato. He's not as gutsy as Pete Willis. So I think a lot of guitarists tend to prefer Willis's solos. He's got more Michael Schenker influence. But usually on this album, he only gets 3 solos to himself, and Steve Clark gets 5. And the others are trade-offs. So you can maybe already see like Pete Willis has maybe been moved sideways a bit. You can see the pattern emerging. And I don't think there's much Pete Willis influence on this album. If you look at the writing credits on Through the Night, you can hear on the more metal-y songs, you can hear his love of Priest and stuff like that coming through. I think that probably starts to get weaned out at this point. Obviously, this is, it's a hard rock album. Next up is probably the most famous track on the album, and one that's still played today, is On Heartbreak. Really good power ballad. Good Joe Elliott vocal on this, probably his best vocal. And he finds like a way of singing that will serve him well on subsequent releases. I think it's fair to say he's what I call a non-singing singer, Joe Elliott. And what I mean by that is he can sing, but he's not a natural singer the way like a Ronnie Dio is, or a Rob Halford, or David Coverdale, Glenn Hughes. So he has to work at it and find his way in, and that was something that Mutt Lange you know, on subsequent albums would work really hard on and have the time to get even better, and it would bring the band big success. So this has got a twin harmony line, guitar line on this, you know, recalling Thin Lizzy. I think that's the 2 or 3 biggest influences that come out on this album are AC/DC with vocal styling and the stripped down guitars, and Thin Lizzy, both with the harmony guitar, but when they're playing kind of unison guitar lines on riff single notes, Steve Clark and Pete Willis, they remind you of Gorham and Robertson a bit. And I think UFO is in there with their sort of good time rock styling. In terms of the vocal harmonies, I mean, they've always mentioned Queen, but I've always thought they had more in common with the Sweet Def Leppard. And for me, forget about T-Rex and David Bowie and things like that. I just don't hear that, or Mott the Hoople, all those things that Joe Elliott name checks. You know, this is a hard rock album, whether he likes it or not. And On Through the Night's a hard rock / heavy metal new album. It is. Okay, side 1 finishes with Switch 625. This is Steve Clark's little party piece. Interesting instrumental. Not unusual for the time Iron Maiden were doing instrumentals on albums. But what, along with Iron Maiden, when the focus is more on rhythm guitar with a bit of lead, it's not like, say, Joe Satriani style instrumental or something like that. But it's got a really simple sort of power chord pick passage. It works really well. The guitars are really well crafted. Again, Mutt Lange probably showing his great ear for arrangement. And that finishes, it's a really strong side 1. I think side 2 tails off, but it has got some great stuff. It's got more kind of deep cuts. So side 2 opens with You Got Me Running, which is a catchy track, good chorus, probably one of the most popular choruses on the album. Again, Willis does a solo on this. You know, it's a decent track, it's not great. I think track 7, Lady Strange, is kind of the deep cut on the album. They used to play this live quite a lot. It's got a really strong chorus. Again, got a harmony guitar line, a la Thin Lizzy. How long's that one? 4:39. And I think it's a fan favourite. Then the next track, On Through the Night. This has kind of got a gallop. This is pretty cool. It's a good album track. Again, unusually taking the title of the previous album. I was trying to remember other bands who've done that, but it's escaped me. But I think one thing that's interesting to point out on this track is you can hear Def Leppard using chord shapes that are going to become very, very popular with hair metal and glam metal. So, you know, they're kind of using it, if for guitarists speak, if you're in the key of A and pedaling the A string, you know, you'd be playing 7 on the D string and 9 on the G, like Hell's Bells kind of thing. But they're kind of moving the shapes, like thirds, using those, like say 5 on the D, 4 on the G. On this one they use a kind of shape 3 on D, 4 on G, and you hear that on stuff like Winger later on and Rat. You know, those types of riffs I don't think have come from Van Halen really. Obviously this will really take hold when Pyromania's a hit in '83, along with Quiet Right's Metal Health. Metal Health. When, you know, the hair metal, commercial metal explodes in the States. But On Through the Night, yeah, it's good album track. And then probably the classic track on the album, track 9, so it comes really late. Quite a funny side to it is Mirror Mirror. This is a great track. Uses, again, quite an innovative, you know, you hear it all the time now, but at the time it uses like a D5, and then it just basically moves the G string up a fret to fret 3. So it's actually The Chain by Fleetwood Mac uses that shape as well. So this actually accept use on Princess of the Dawn. That's a year later though. So I think Leppard are kind of one of the first to use this kind of shape. It's got a really pumping low D as well. Really good groove on this. The guitars, again, it's a cool riff and it's really well arranged. Look at the writers, Clark, Savage, Elliott. So I'm guessing again Steve Clark's brought in some quirky riffing here. And it's 5:06. So it's the longest track. No, it's 4:08. Sorry, that was On Through the Night. Apologies. Yeah, this is a track they still play live in America. Unfortunately, when they play in Britain, they tend to just play Let It Go off this album or Bring On the Heartbreak. Well, Bring On the Heartbreak generally. It's frustrating for fans who don't get to hear those classic On Through the Night tracks and High and Dry. But Def Leppard got big on their stereo album in the UK, so they tend to go that way. This album actually went gold eventually in the States and then pushed over to double platinum once Pyromania was a big hit. So it really laid the groundwork for them. They did videos and so on. I think it was at the cost of UK success. They'd been kind of turned on at a Reading Festival. And this album only charted number 26 in the UK, but that wasn't unusual in 1981. Bands that had success in 1980 and the back of a new album, they tended to find their chart placing was 10 places lower the next year, and that's Maiden, Priest, all those bands, you know, Black Sabbath with the Mob Rules, you know. So it's not just Def Leppard. And then the album finishes on a Turkey No No No. This is it's a real throwaway track. I don't even, you know, they probably didn't need to put it on the album. They could have just had 9 tracks and finished with Mirror Mirror. So it's like the one false note on the album. But it's a firm fan favourite. I mean, definitely give it an 8 out of 10. It's a good hard rock record, and it sets Def Leppard apart in 1981. And Judas Priest made the point of entry on, which is a hard rock album. It's a kind of sidestep for Judas Priest. But it sets them aside, you know, if you take the other 2 new album bands, Saxon continue their Saxon sound with Denim and Leather, you know, if it ain't broke, don't fix it, and it's a great record. And Maiden develop with a production with the Killers album from the Iron Maiden debut. But essentially it's just, you know, it's still in that ilk, whereas Def Leppard, you know, they lose their Russian influence, they lose their kind of Priest, you know, little metal progressive elements and go with the AC/DC Thin Lizzy thing. When they get onto Pyromania, it'll be more AC/DC, but with the types of chord shapes I was talking about before, and obviously it will, and the attention to detail on the production. Although I don't like the drum sound on that. I mean, I should just say with this album, it's got a kind of deep snare sound. It's pretty punchy, but they seem to lose the natural drum sound. Obviously with the Pyromania album, and then when they did Hysteria, they had to do that obviously because Rick Allen lost his arm, so they would need to use Simmons pads. But so it's the last Def Leppard album that sounds kind of raw and raucous, I think. The performances are good from all members. Probably apart from Joe Elliott, I think sometimes his vocals are lacking here, but he's finding, like I say, along with Mutt Lange, he's going on a journey to kind of find, like, right, how should I sing, and then they nail that with Pyromania. Okay, so I hope you enjoyed that. On through the High and Dry, 40 years old today. You know, a classic hard rock album of 1981. Cheers, thanks.